Challenge the impossible. We just heard Barbara talking about that. That's what this is all about, our divinity, our power, our strength, remembering who we are. You know, throughout history, people have constantly tried to say what's impossible. They're constantly trying to do that. I remember a particular time when physicists and scientists and doctors all stepped forward and said, it is impossible for a man to run a 4-minute mile. It's just not possible. Our bodies aren't made for it. We're just not made to run that fast. So people should stop trying because all they're going to do is hurt themselves. And there was this one guy who said, I don't think so. I think this is possible. I think this is something I can do. And so he went and did it and broke it into the 4 minutes. Now, it wasn't long after that, I think just a few months, before 3 or 4 other people did it too because they saw this guy do it. They go, oh, it's not impossible. And that's what happens, right? Because when every time something seems impossible, if nobody challenges it, then it is. But since we know in this teaching that what we embody manifests, right? Anything is possible if we can embody it. When somebody steps up and goes, I don't think that's impossible. I think I can do that. And then they go ahead and do it. And then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of other people go, oh, I guess that wasn't impossible. I guess we were wrong. I guess that wasn't impossible. How many times do you have to be wrong before you realize that anything is possible? Now, I have heard people say, well, I had a 60-year-old woman saying, does that mean I can play in the NFL? If anything is possible? And I will say, on one hand, yes, but on another hand, we are all unique beings, every one of us. And we are all uniquely qualified to do what is ours to do to bring forward into life. So if that 60-year-old woman, it was really hers to do, and she'd been going for that her whole life, would do that, well then, yeah. But for most of us, we have our own wheelhouse. We have our own sense of what it is, our preferences, our desires, what it is we want. And the problem that comes up sometimes for some of us is that we think what we want is not possible. And so when somebody asks us, what do you want? And we go, I don't know, that should be a real red flag for you. If you're saying, I don't know when somebody asks what you want, the odds are you think what you want is impossible. And so you're trying to figure out what you want second. And that's really hard. Because our heart, our soul, our spirit wants to bring forth that thing that we rationally keep saying that's not possible. And it holds us back from the magnificence of who we truly are. When we try to figure out what it is we want second, instead of remembering the essence of what it is we really want. Now, another thing that gets us caught up is when we think, it's not what we really feel, but it's what we think, that something we want has to look a particular way. And when we do that, we get stuck in that, well, it doesn't look that way, so I'm not succeeding. I'm not getting closer. This is starting to feel impossible. Great story about this guy who wanted to be a pro golfer. And he went out there on tour, and he kept trying, and he really wasn't very good at golf. But this is what he wanted, so he kept at it. And he got to the point where he thought, I need to do something to really help me here get on the pro circuit. So he developed a computer program to help his swing that would follow his swing, look at the arch, and allow him to improve through working with the interactiveness of the computer program he had built. And it improved his game so much, he made it onto the Pro Tour. And there were pros who had been watching this guy because he'd been going at this for so long, who were like amazed at how much better his game got. And so they went up to him and said, "What did you do? How did you improve your game so much?" And he goes, "Well, I developed this program and I've been using it and it's really working for me." And then they wanted to be his best buddy, and they offered him millions for that program. And so all of a sudden, he got to be part of a game that he so loved in a different way than he thought, because he never really became that pro golfer he wanted, but he got to play with the pro golfers that he loved. He got to go out and play golf with them. He got to buddy around with them. And when he was asked about this guy who is now a multimillionaire and living an incredibly successful life, because not only did this program sell to pro golfers, but he put it on the general market, he said, "I had no idea when I first started out that my true love was just being a part of the game, that I actually didn't care about being a pro golfer myself. I just cared about that I was a part of it all." And so he got to feel incredibly satisfied in his life because he didn't get stuck in the idea that it had to look a very particular way. Do you get what I'm saying here? It's so easy to do. It happened to me. When I was first going out in the music business, I'd written this song, and the biggest publishing company in the world came to me and said, "We want that song because we have these artists that want to perform your song." And because I was stuck in the idea of how things had to look, I said, "No, I want to sing that song." And at the time, Paul Simon's management company, which was very interested in me and had signed me, had videoed one of my shows and showed me how flat I was when I sang. They said, "You have a great look, your songs are great, but you're really not cutting it. How about we let somebody else front your band, and you can still be in the band, but let somebody else front it who can actually sing." And I said no, and it wasn't long before they dropped me, and my song, never did get recorded by anybody because I got stuck on the idea of what it was supposed to look like. And I look back at that and go, wow, I did that. I'd spent years blaming all these other people for why I didn't make it in the music business, get a part of this teaching, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I did that. I did that by being stuck on what it looked like instead of allowing my music to go out and be what it could have been in the world back then. And so, I look at that and I go, actually, it's not impossible for me to try that again now. And so Ash and I are actually in the process of recording a bunch of my new songs and getting things done. And I'm setting up this whole mechanism for getting them back out into the world in a very different way and with a very different mindset because of Science of Mind than I did before. And I absolutely expect to be successful at that. Nothing is impossible if it's in your wheelhouse and it's in yours to do. So look at that. Look at that for yourself. What are those deeper desires? Maybe you got stuck like I did and it had to look a particular way. Maybe you got stuck because, this happened or that happened. Maybe you're still blaming others instead of taking the full responsibility for your own ride in life. There are some incredible things. When you look at what's impossible, there are people around you that go, whoa, you're playing with fire. Well, we walk across fire. We don't just play with it, we walk on it. So we don't have to sit back and go, I don't know if that feels like a bridge too far. There's no such thing if it's in your wheelhouse to do. Did you know that recently a woman was named a coach in the NFL? Now, that was something I thought was impossible. That has come to light. And so, sure, she's not on the field playing, but she's in the game that she loves, and she's happy as a lark. She's broken a glass ceiling. She's in the NFL. Yeah. What's impossible? What's impossible? So, I was born with acrophobia. That's the fear of heights. Walking up on this stage used to have me shaking. I couldn't get up when I was a kid. I couldn't go up 2 steps on a ladder without beginning to really shake. And I tried all kinds of things to get me through that. I walked across the 59th Street Bridge in New York, which goes over this river about 300 feet high and is nothing but grate. So you see through it the whole way across. And I walked holding on to the railing, but making myself open my eyes and look down as I walked across, waited till I calmed down and then walked back, and still I could not get up 2 feet on a ladder. And so years pass, and I get into this teaching, and we start building this place. And I was in charge of designing the sound system for it. And one of the things that had to be done was hanging, these are not the original speakers that were up here, but they're in the original spot that they had to be, and we had scaffolding in here that was 20 feet high, and it was my job to get up on that scaffolding and put up those speakers. And I didn't tell anybody that, what happens to me when I get up on a ladder. Nobody knew about my acrophobia because somehow I had avoided getting up on any ladder in all the rest of the building around here. In the meantime, one of the things I've been doing since I was out of high school is getting together with 4 high school buddies, and we have gone and we have done some of the most outrageous stuff you can imagine every year, once a year, since high school. And that particular year, I thought, I really need to get over my acrophobia. It seems impossible, but I really need to do that. I'm going to try skydiving. And so I called my buddies, and I said, we're going skydiving. And they were like, all right. And we planned this trip out to Las Vegas. We go out to Las Vegas. And the day comes where we're going skydiving. When we go out to this place in the desert, it's tandem jumps where you're actually connected to somebody who's jumped a lot and takes you out of the plane. And so the first thing they do when we get to this place is they sit us in a room with a TV and play a video with a lawyer sitting behind a desk who says over and over and over, you could die. For a half hour. He says, you could die, and every time he says you could die, he gives another way in which you can die. The parachute might not open, the strings could get, tied up. The one that I loved the best was, if you panic, the guy you're connected with can cut you loose, and you will drop to your death. One by one, all my buddies get up and go, I can't do this, and leave the room until I'm the only one left. I'm going, I'm doing this. And so they get me up, and they start putting me in the suit, and they're wrapping me up. And while they're doing this, for whatever reason, I'm like this. I'm shaking. I'm shaking so bad I can barely control myself. I mean, they're just going on and on with these things while I'm standing there, which is really kind of, messing with my head in terms of, what are they doing? And they just keep going on and on. They wrap me up, and then this huge 250-pound guy comes out and says, I'm the guy you're going to be connected to. And so they give me my helmet, and we get into the plane, and now the plane's going up. And I had chosen to not only jump out of the plane, but I paid the extra to go to 15,000 feet so we could free fall for 60 seconds. Because I figured if I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Right? So we're going up in the plane, and I'm still shaking. I mean, I can barely control myself. I'm thinking I'm going to pee in my pants any second. And so we're up there, and finally it's time to jump. And so we get up. I'm all hooked up to this guy, and all the time he's been whispering in my ear, you can change your mind, at any point. You can change your mind at any point. Everybody's saying this. You can change your mind at any point. I'm hooked up to this 250-pound guy, and we're walking to the door where I can't even see where the door is. And he keeps saying, you can change your mind as soon as we're at the door. As soon as we get to the door, he leans out of the plane. The second we get there, he leans out of the plane. So, of course, I'm connected to him. He's 250 pounds. We're now outside the plane. Now, have you ever seen a Roadrunner cartoon where Wile E. Coyote goes off the edge and then everything freezes for like a second before the fall? That really happened because I was outside the plane looking at the plane that I was just in. There's the plane. There's me. Oh my God, I'm outside the plane. I had time to have all these thoughts before we're plummeting to the earth at 160 miles an hour, which is what I've been told is the plummeting speed, velocity that you hit when you're plummeting towards earth. And so we're going towards earth, and the thing going through my mind now is, funny things run through your mind when you're going through all this. It's like, I paid a lot of money for this. I better enjoy it. And then the other thing is if I panic, he's cutting me loose. And so I start to breathe. I do my breathing exercises. I start to relax. And we're dive bombing towards the earth. And I'm starting to relax. I'm actually starting to enjoy this. There's the earth. I'm way higher than 2 steps. And as we're plummeting down, and then all of a sudden he pulls the chute. And then the thing that I recognized first was how loud 160 miles an hour is, because once he pulled the chute, it was dead silent. It was so quiet. It was beautiful. And you could see forever to the horizon, It was just gorgeous. And then he goes, hey, if you want, we can do some loop-de-loops. And I was like, no, this is good. This is good. Because I was calm. I could feel my own sense of calm. I'm looking out at this height, and I was calm. And we're coming down. We're coming down to the ground, and we're getting closer and closer. And they had showed me how to, get up in a ball so you don't feel the impact to your knees and stuff. And he whispers in my ear, you know everything they told you about? Forget it. Just stand there. You'll be fine. And so we're coming down, and we're about 10 feet from the ground when all of a sudden he does something with the chute, and we stop. We just stop the fall and float until all of a sudden I'm standing on the ground with no more impact than if I'd taken 1 step down from here. That was it. It was that smooth. It was amazing. And my buddies were there, and they got down on their knees, and they bowed to me, and I looked at them all, and I said, I own you now. And I said to them, next year, we're getting tattoos. They all now have tattoos, including myself, because they weren't going to say no again. And so then I came back here and I hung these speakers. I haven't had a problem on a ladder since. I've gone up to limbs, cut off limbs on trees, hung bird feeders out where I thought squirrels can't get to them, but of course that's not possible. Talk about an impossibility. Okay, it may be impossible to keep a squirrel away from a bird feeder. I'm not sure. I know they keep working on that. They're bound to come up with it sooner or later. But yeah, I hung these speakers. I was able to get up on that scaffolding. There was no problem at all. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't challenged what felt impossible to me. So that's what I'm asking for you today to look at. What feels impossible in your life that is in your wheelhouse that you are hungering to do, that your soul wants to show you, that you can do it? Like Barbara said, everything we need, we got to do what it is that is ours to do, even if it feels impossible. We can keep moving forward. My favorite impossible story has to do with myself. Again, another story. I was 12, and I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. At the time, they told me I was the youngest person on the planet who'd ever gotten that. It's not the case anymore, but at that point, it was. And so my parents were able to get free care for me in exchange for me becoming students being able to look at me and work on me and do all this stuff. It was fairly an horrendous experience at the time. And I was in and out of hospitals. They were trying this on me and that on me, and nothing was really working. By the time I hit my 20s, I'd been, I don't know how many times in and out of hospital, 3, 4, 5 times. And then I started to experiment with non-traditional ways of dealing with it, none of which worked. And I got worse and I got worse, to the point where at the time I was in my late 20s, they told me that having taken a look inside, I had so much scar tissue, it was no longer a matter of if I got cancer, but when. And when I was 40, I wound up in the hospital where they told me I only had 5 days to live. They left the room after telling me this, and I decided if I'm going to die, I'm going to go home. So the nurse comes in. I call in the nurse and I say, I'm going home. She says, you can't. I say, actually, I can, and ripped the IVs out of my arm with her standing there. She freaks out. She runs out of the room, calls the doctor. I call my ex-wife and I say, come get me. I'm coming home to die. We got to get our stuff in order. So I get home, and and I'm just lying there feeling in agony, because now I don't even have the morphine I had from the hospital. And we get a phone call from a friend who says, look, since you're going to die anyway, why don't you try this non-traditional thing? I know you've tried a bunch of stuff, but give this a shot. And so I go and I see this doctor. And one of the things that I had was the reason that they said thought I was going to die was 106-degree fever. And they, after all the antibiotics and everything they tried, they could not break the fever. So I go see this hooey guy, and he's just has me on this table, and at 106 degrees, your joints hurt so bad. I mean, everything just hurts. And I'm lying on this table, and he's poking at me, and he's pulling at me. He's in my mouth, poking here, here, here. And all of a sudden he goes, okay, you're healed. That's $150. See you later. Sends me home. That night, my fever dropped to 100. Now, 100 is not healthy, but it's not dead. At the time, it was February in upstate New York. We had about 3 to 5 feet of snow. And I had decided that at 100-degree fever, I could not be there anymore. So I decided I never wanted to see snow again, sold the house, sold my business, and we started driving to what I thought was going to be Tucson. Instead, wound up, on our way to Tucson, we drive through Asheville, fell in love, and never got any further. So I'm now in Asheville. This is about 25 years ago. I'm in Asheville 25 years ago with 100-degree fever, and somebody says they know about a healer in town I should go see. Some of you may actually, if you've been here long enough, know the name Sissy Majebi. So I go see this woman, and we start working together, and all of a sudden, and the first year, nothing really changes. I'm still sick as a dog. Still have 100-degree fever for a year before that fever starts going down. And things start changing. And a lot of things in my health start changing. And I'm getting better and better until it's time for me to go back up to New York to get, those inside checks they do. And I go up there. I've been down here about 5 years at this point, been into this teaching. Been working with Sissy, in this teaching. And they take the photos inside, and they say, this is not possible. Some mistake has been made here because there is no scar tissue at all. None. As if you've never had any disease. And that is not possible. And so I called Sissy and I said, hey, and I called John. I said, hey, check this out. They said, this is impossible. I have zero scar tissue after they told me I had so much that I was definitely going to get cancer. It was no longer a matter of if. Sissy goes, get those before and after photos. So I call the doctor and they say, sorry, we lost them. Because to them it was impossible. It was impossible that I could still be standing here before you today when they told me I was going to die in 5 days. My life is an impossibility. And that's what makes it possible for me to get up here and say to you, nothing is impossible. Because I've seen it. I did this Native American death ceremony. I used to work with the same shaman, teacher that John and Barbara do, Rocking Bear. And he put me through this ceremony where in March, he stuck me under a waterfall that was all icicles. Right? The water, I don't know what temperature that water was, but there was ice floating. We're talking cold. Now, my understanding is that hypothermia kicks in about 15 minutes. I was in there for 45. And I stand before you today. So my question again is, what is impossible? What are you limiting yourself in your life because you think it's impossible, or somebody else is telling you it's impossible? We have an extraordinary teaching here, just extraordinary, in terms of what's possible if we're willing to embody it. Take it in. Say yes, yes. This, like I was saying in the circle when we first got here, I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I'm so tired, I want to go back to sleep. And then I was like, no, I have the power of the universe in every cell of my body. I have that. So how could I possibly be tired? Do I look tired to you? Do I look tired to you? No. We have this power at our beck and call. It's not something we got to conjure up. It's not something we got to, work really hard at. We just got to know it. Take it in. Be with it. And then let your gifts flow. Flow. Whatever they are. And they're unique for each and every one of us. Your gifts are not my gifts. My gifts are not yours. We all have our own, but we have them. We have something brilliant. Each one of us has something brilliant to bring forward, to bring out, and life wants it. Just so you know, whatever it is you got going on, life wants. Life wants your brilliance. Life brought you here to bring forth that brilliance. That's why you're here. So don't sell yourself short. How can you? You are, as Barbara said, the full essence of the divine, not just a piece of it. Right here, right now, to bring forth what is yours to create. You are the creator of your creation. And as the creator, are more powerful than anything you want to create. You have that right here, right now. And I know that for you. Thank you. I love you.